Get £20 in risk-free bets this season when you join SBK. That's money back in cash on your first £20 of losses. Well worth a go. Hello and welcome to episode 44 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer and SBK. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only football writer, broadcaster and general man in the know, Dean Jones, to discuss all the latest news and gossip from the world of football. The transfer window may only have just closed a week ago or so, but that doesn't mean there's no rumours going around or transfer speculation with teams already setting their focus ahead of the January window. It was a good window, Dean, lots of deals happening, but that doesn't stop clubs actively looking for new targets ahead of this January window.
Absolutely, that I think that you get your prime business done, of course you do, but there are deals like, say, Jules Koundé, where you try and escalate a situation if you see an opening, and if it doesn't work out, then you can fall back on it. And I think that's exactly what Chelsea do in that situation. So, yeah, there's plenty of business that's left over from the summer, and on the flip of that, there's new business that's beginning as clubs do start their planning ahead of next summer already.
Yeah, one man whose future was the subject of constant debate in the summer, and I'm sure will be leading up to the January window, is West Ham and England midfielder Declan Rice. He was strongly linked with Chelsea and Manchester United during the summer window. Lots of recent reports suggesting that Manchester United have made Declan Rice their number one target, even for the January window, but not even if they can't get him then. They really will go all guns blazing for him in the summer as well. What's your latest take on the future of Declan Rice? Still hasn't signed a new contract at West Ham, and he rejected a couple of offers in the summer to extend it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if there was going to be any agreement over a new contract, it would have to include a trigger in it to get him out of the club, or a release clause similar to what Jack Grealish had at Aston Villa. But I think the situation is going to become much more interesting over the next year. It looked like Chelsea almost had a free run on him this summer if they wanted him, and they didn't go ahead with the interest. And now Man United and Man City are firmly back in the conversation, and will look ahead over the next year to kind of, I guess, reconfigure their own midfields. And both of those clubs are definitely interested in Declan Rice. United are the club being talked about most, but I think that Man City have definitely have him on their radar as well.
Yeah, he'd be an ideal replacement for maybe a Fernandinho at Man City, who's coming to the end of his illustrious time at the Etihad Stadium, but it's going to be at least £100 million we're talking about for Declan Rice if West Ham are to sell him. And West Ham, under no massive pressure to sell him just now. He's under contract until 2024, but I'm sure that situation will change probably come the summer of 2022. They might have to start listening to offers for Declan Rice, especially if there's no progress in his contract talks, which looks unlikely. Yeah,
totally. It's a lot of money, and I think that you say, well, they paid $100 million for Jack Grealish. Why wouldn't they pay $100 million for Declan Rice? It's difficult to put a value on Declan Rice, isn't it? Because with Jack Grealish, you've got the output, you've got the numbers that you can start to compare and contrast over what he achieves now to what he will achieve over the course of his Man City career. And with Declan Rice, of course, they'll have stats and stuff within the club that they will look at, but in terms of assists, goals, it's not the same thing for Declan Rice. So it's more difficult to go and outlay £100 million on a player like that. I still think that both United and City would rather not pay £100 million for Declan Rice, even though they both really want him. But ultimately, they won't want to lose out again. And I think, obviously, United have beaten Man City to signing Cristiano Ronaldo. I think they're going to go head-to-head on quite a few players, to be honest, in the coming years. And I think that it's a situation that's going to be great for us, but not so great for one of them.
Yeah, one of them is going to have to miss out if they're both going after the same transfer targets as well. But regards Declan Rice, done very well for West Ham in England over the last 18 months or so, but still not on a great deal at West Ham when you look at some of the other top earners there. We've all heard of Kurt Zouma's coming in there to be the highest paid player at the club, while Declan Rice is probably on maybe half that money. So it's not going to be easy for West Ham to tie him down to a new contract, because they're going to have to give him probably top dollar to keep him.
Absolutely that. And on top of that, I think Declan Rice knows that if he goes to another club, he's earning more money, mega money. And from conversations that happened at the start of this summer, from what I understand, when his representatives, his family members sounded out other clubs, they were given pretty good indication that we're looking at 200 grand, upwards of that even, to sign Declan Rice, as well as signing on fees that are going to be included in that. And it's a substantial deal on top of that huge transfer figure that West Ham are looking for. But Declan Rice, established England international, will believe that he is now worthy of that kind of money, and that he's going to place himself accordingly. And fair enough, to be honest. Like, you can see the kind of company he's in. He's on those England trips, and he won't want to put a limit, I don't think, on his own earnings and his own ambitions and what he can achieve by staying at West Ham for too much longer.
Yeah, he's an ambitious young player, Declan Rice, I think. As you said, away in those England camps, he's probably talking to the players about the money they're earning, also Champions League exploits as well. And that's what Declan Rice is going to be looking in the near future as well. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting few months to see how Declan Rice's future does pan out. But yeah, he's going to be an in-demand player, I think, in January. And if he doesn't move in January, definitely next summer, it's going to be a big decision to be made regards Rice's future. Moving on to Rice's England teammate, Jesse Lingard, whose future was again in the spotlight over the summer, and it's back in it now, Dean, with reports suggesting that he's rejected a new contract offer from Manchester United. What's going to happen with Jesse Lingard here? Because many people expected him to move on in the summer, probably to West Ham. The move didn't happen. He decided to stay. But then, how are you thinking Jesse Lingard was feeling when he saw Cristiano Ronaldo coming back to the club? Just pushes him even further down the pecking order. So no major surprise to see him reject this contract offer from United, is it?
No, I mean, it's a confusing one probably for Jesse Lingard, because on one hand, he's a United fan. He's been there since he was a kid, and having Ronaldo back and training alongside him and stuff would be ridiculously exciting. But in terms of your own chances, you're just falling further and further down the pecking order, and he's barely getting a look in anyway. So now it looks even more unlikely. West Ham obviously did sound him out during the window, and they thought that late doors they might be able to strike a deal, but until those last weeks, Jesse was pretty intent on giving it a go to see if he could get into that United side. And ultimately, United didn't seem too willing to open up conversations. I think they want to make sure they've got a strong, deep squad for this season. Maybe in January, I think that this changes, to be honest. I think that once we're halfway through the season, once the player becomes perhaps more frustrated, but once United also make it pretty clear whether he can figure, we'll get more of an indication over where he's going. I don't think he'll be at Man United.
Yeah, he's in the final year of his contract at Old Trafford as well. Now he's turned down this extension. United would be silly not to try and sell him in January, I think. Otherwise, he could walk out on a free, and United don't want to do that. They were asking for around 25 million for him this summer. So if they were to lose out on that type of money, his price tag is definitely going to be a lot lower this summer, and that might bring more clubs to the table, not just West Ham, but I'm sure there'll be other Premier League and clubs from abroad maybe looking at Jesse Lingard, who, again, is in the England squad and scored 2 goals last week against Andorra, so didn't do himself any harm with that performance. But at this stage of his career, you're thinking January is going to be the time for him to move.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a reason United extended his deal last time around, and it was because they wanted to maintain some value in him. They did that, and now it's running down again, and they want to sign another new contract. Like that cycle's not just going to continue. Jesse will be looking at options, and obviously he's had plenty of clubs inquire over him. I think his big question really is, like, does he stay in England or does he go and try himself abroad? And I think there's definitely an opportunity there for him to go and try himself in a different league, in a different environment, and perhaps that would be a wise thing for him to do right now. I'm not saying that he can't do it in the Premier League. He definitely can, and he's had a taste of that at West Ham, being the star player. But say, for example, Borussia Dortmund was to come in for him if he's at such a reasonable valuation, what could he potentially do at a club like that? I think there'll be offers like that become that are mooted in the coming months, and I think that's why he'll be keeping his options open for now.
Yeah, he looks in a good position, Jesse Lingard, although he might not be getting regular minutes at Man United this season, just the 4 minutes as a sub against Southampton. I think when January comes around, there'll be plenty of takers for Jesse Lingard if United are ready to sell and the player is ready to move on for a new challenge as well. Sticking with England midfielders, Jude Bellingham has been in the gossip columns recently. Potential move to Liverpool's been mooted. We know that Liverpool are still in the market for a new midfielder after failing to replace Gino Wijnaldum this summer. Speculation intensified about a possible move for Bellingham after he admitted Liverpool legend Steven Gerrard was one of his idols when he was growing up as well. So that got a lot of Liverpool fans excited. Are you going to knock down their excitement here, Dean? I don't think there's a move anywhere close in this one, or do you know anything else?
No, there's not. And more than that, I think that, to be honest, this is going to be a big storyline for the next year. And I think that Chelsea are going for Jude Bellingham. And I think that they're going to ramp up their pursuit of him over the coming months. They've already been scouting him in great detail over the past couple of years. We've talked about before on here how they were even considering going into this transfer window, whether it might be possible. Not too long ago, he signed a new contract with Dortmund, and I think that he sees it as a great platform for himself. But I've been told from various sources that are usually pretty reliable around Chelsea that Bellingham is a player they are very hot on. And I think, I'm not saying that they're not interested in Declan Rice anymore, but there is definitely as much interest now in Jude Bellingham, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, he's not going to be short of takers, is he, Jude Bellingham, once he does decide maybe to leave Dortmund. But as we know with Dortmund, they are keen to keep him, and we know they won't be forced into selling their best players, as we've seen over the years with Jadon Sancho and Erling Haaland this summer. He's under contract there at Dortmund until 2025. I don't think they're under any real pressure to sell. But if you're talking about Jude Bellingham here, we're probably talking about a generational talent. If we're talking hundreds of millions for Declan Rice, who knows what the price tag could be for Jude Bellingham in 12 months, the way he's progressing.
They'll set the bar high, won't they? But what I think will help Dortmund as well is, like we were talking before about Man City and Man United now being in that conversation with Declan Rice. I think they'll be in this conversation as well. I think that Bellingham will be on the radar of Liverpool, United, City and Chelsea. I do think Chelsea will lead the race, as it were. But yeah, all those clubs are going to be involved in this conversation, and it's a real big decision for him to take when the time comes as to where to make that step. Obviously, he had opportunities when he left Birmingham to stay in the Premier League, particularly with Man United. Yeah. Didn't take it, but there's no doubt he does plan to come back. I think the biggest question for him is whether it's 2022 or the year after. I think it will depend how things start to pan out there under the new boss. And obviously, Sancho's just gone. Haaland's likely to be going. It'll involve a lot of varying aspects that come into play. But yeah, Dortmund will, I'm sure, soon set a valuation on his head to let all those clubs know exactly what it's going to take to get him out of there.
Yeah, you got to remember, still only 18, Jude Bellingham. He's had quite a rise in the world of football already. A fully established member of Gareth Southgate's England squad, and doing wonders for Dortmund, not just in the Bundesliga but also the Champions League. And there's going to be a whole host of clubs after him in the next probably year or two trying to bring him back to England. And Jude Bellingham, I'm sure, will have his pick when he does decide he wants to move on from Dortmund, whenever that is. Talking of Liverpool, who have been linked with Bellingham, they had a quiet transfer window, Dean, not bringing in many signings. Konate was the only major signing for Jurgen Klopp's men. It seemed that the Reds were preferring to focus tying down their stars to new long-term contracts, the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andy Robertson, Alisson, Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, Virgil van Dijk have all signed fresh terms at Anfield. But the big one still to be concluded, to have put pen to paper, is Mo Salah. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp will be desperate to get Salah down to a new contract. I think he's now less than 2 years left on his current deal at the club, and the club are in talks over a new deal to keep him at Anfield. What's your latest take on the future of Mo Salah and these contract talks?
I think they need to convince him that it's the place to be still. I really do. I think when you look at when he went into the club, the levels they've propelled him to are exactly where he dreamed of being. And I think I've been delighted with the way things have gone. Won the Premier League, he's won the Champions League. And now Liverpool started to drop off a little, whereas the other big clubs have all stepped up again. I think he needs to be assured that Liverpool is stepping up again very, very soon. While their squad is still definitely able to compete and match those teams, it doesn't take longer than a year for you to fall away again if you're not reinvesting. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here with Salah. Not only do they need to put forward a great financial package for him himself, I think more than that, they need to convince him that on the pitch, this is the place that he can fulfill all of his ambitions, and that's personal as well as like in a team scenario. Can he be in that conversation to win the Ballon d'Or? Can he be regarded as one of the greatest African players of all time? What other records can he set in the years that are left of his career? Approaching 30 now. Big decision for him to make over this next contract. And yeah, while some of that is financial, it's not all financial. It's all about objectives for him to set out.
Yeah, I think he'll be waiting to see what Liverpool maybe do in the transfer market over the next couple of windows before he makes a decision on his future. Maybe a few marquee signings to show that Liverpool are intending to be challenging for the highest honours at home and abroad might play a big decision in Mo Salah's contract talks as well. But for the options that are out there for him, Dean, maybe some of them are closing up on him. We all know Real Madrid have held a long-term interest in Salah, but it seems Mbappe is their number one target, and maybe even Haaland next summer, so that would probably close the door there. PSG might be the only option out there from Mo Salah next summer if contract talks don't progress as well as Liverpool and Salah hope they do.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, Madrid, La Liga is clearly where he's always imagined himself going next. Obviously, the outlook has changed since he first set his sights on that because of COVID and the limitations on finances. But yeah, if Madrid don't sign their top targets, they'll definitely be on that list. And I think Barcelona, things could quickly turn around there. You never know what situation they'll be in a year's time. And if not, then PSG certainly seems to come on the table if Mbappe goes. I think Richarlison is definitely somebody they're pursuing. But after what they've done this summer, you absolutely wouldn't rule out PSG coming in for Mo Salah. And they can offer him all those things I was just talking about. A ridiculous financial package, I'm sure, but also that opportunity to win the Champions League, win domestic competitions, and put himself in that bracket as one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, if these talks with Liverpool do stall between Mo Salah and the club, there'll be no shortage of takers for the Egyptian across the world, whose his numbers at Liverpool, I think, have been right up there with probably the Ronaldos and Messis over the last couple of years. I think he's got 127 goals. But yeah, big few months ahead for Liverpool, who have so far managed to secure a number of their other top stars in new contracts. But if they can get Mo Salah on a new contract, that'll send out the right signal to everybody inside and outside the club that Liverpool still mean business and still mean to be fighting for honours at the top end of the table. Moving down to the Football League, Dean, another vital game coming up for Chris Hughton this weekend for Nottingham Forest. They've got Cardiff. Pressure really growing on Hughton after a real disappointing start to the season. 1 point from 5 games. That point did come in their last game before the international break against their big rivals Derby. Suggestions I had were that if Forest had lost that game to Derby, Chris Hughton might have been sacked. I don't think those are going to go away anytime quickly right now at Forest because just haven't lived up to expectations at the City Ground. Would you be surprised if Hughton was to get the sack so early in the season if he can't turn it around?
I wouldn't really be surprised, no, because they can't afford to let this drag on too long. And I think it depends how deep the negative vibes are within the camp. And I think that's a decision the board have to make quite quickly, to be honest. If you're going to say he's staying, then you've got to put faith in him and give it till like that run towards Christmas. Otherwise, if you're already thinking it's getting away from you and that there are too many things going wrong, then you need to take a decision now. And Chris Hughton, look, within the game, he's obviously got an unbelievable reputation. But in recent times just doesn't seem to quite live up to what people are expecting of him. So he had that difficult end at Brighton, and then he's come in at Forest, and I think they were probably expecting pretty big things from him, and they haven't hit the heights that they would have liked. And you look at the top order right now in the Championship and wonder how you can get among that, because that's where they need to be to try and get back in the Premier League. Not really that close to it. So, yeah, it's a big decision to make, and I imagine they'll take it reasonably quick.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well known that the Greek owners at Forest are not renowned for their patience, and there are plenty of managerial changes at Forest and their other club, Olympiacos. So, big few weeks coming up for Chris Hughton as well, but also the new CEO there, Dane Murphy, who arrived from Barnsley. He will have a big role, I think, in any management change that might happen there at the City Ground. He had success picking up managers from abroad, relatively unknown. Gerhard Struber came in, saved Barnsley from relegation. Then Valerian Ismail came in and continued his good work by leading Barnsley to the playoffs in that one. So we've had a few names chucked around already, Dean, to replace Hughton if he does end up going at the City Ground. Chris Wilder's been mentioned. He's in the frame. I know he is keen to get back into management, and the Forest job would be something that might suit him. But do you think with Murphy in charge now, they might go down the foreign route like he had success at Barnsley, or do you think Chris Wilder would be the right man to get the best out of that squad at Forest?
I think when you've had success of taking a certain approach, then it's very tempting to go back to it, isn't it? And I think it's equally as risky to go for Chris Wilder, who, yes, he had good success at Sheffield United, but it was within one club. He was able to build them from the bottom and propel them to heights they weren't really expecting to hit quite as quickly as they did. And that's a risk in itself. Like, did it just work under those circumstances, or can it work again at a different club? I think because he's had that success of taking coaches from abroad and putting them into a new environment, and it's worked, I think that's definitely going to prove to be a temptation. And I imagine names are already being worked on as to where they'll turn to, because that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, that's the nature of the game. unfortunately for managers up and down the country, we are getting into sacking season when managers do lose their job and clubs start to panic. And I'm sure Nottingham Forest right now, they are doing their due diligence on possible replacements for Chris Hughton if things do not turn around there quickly. But yeah, big few weeks ahead for Forest, and let's see if Hughton is the man to turn around their fortunes. Right, that's us here for another week on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week for more insight and the latest news and gossip from the world of football.